The recent India-China conflict and the opportunities for US. The United States has been maintaining cordial relationship and trade relations and on multiple fronts and issue areas. The United States has consolidated cordiality with India on economic, political, social, trade and on multilateral matters. The Indian-Chinese conflict and the US is seeking and seeing the opportunities of imbalancing China and balancing the India. The India's border dispute with China has accelerated its relations with the United States. Others worry that warming ties ignore India's persecution of Muslims. The time when Indian soldiers arriving last month in Ladakh region and the border near to China. And in the month of June, India and Chinese troops brawled along a land border in which 20 Indian soldiers were killed by Chinese troops. There were a lot of discussions and a lot of writing material has been published in World News and World Print Media and discussed in the electronic media. What New York Times has said, we will try to discuss on those materials of the New York Times, and we will quote the spoken data and the analysis. Weeks after India and China engaged in their deadliest border clash in decades, the sight of an American nuclear-powered aircraft carrier entering the Bay of Bengal drew attention across the region. The carrier Nimitz and its strike group deployed to the area in mid-July to conduct an exercise with the Indian Navy in pursuit of free and open Indo-Pacific. And according to a statement by the US, in the Pacific Ocean, the Nimitz carrier strike group, consisting of flagship USS Nimitz CVN-68, Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser USS Princeton CG-59, and Burke-class guided missile destroyers USS Stirat DDG-104 and USS Rolf Johnson DDG-114, along with Indian Navy ships Harana, Sahyadri, and Shivalak, and Komorta steam in formation during a cooperative development in the Indian Ocean. The photos were issued by the mass communication specialist second class Donald R. White Jr. in the New York Times. The Nimitz carrier strike group, consisting of flagship USS Nimitz CVN-68, Ticonderoga-class guided missile cruiser USS Princeton CG-59 and Burke-class guided missile destroyers USS Stirat DDG-104 and USS Rolf Johnson DDG-114 participated in cooperative exercises with the Indian Navy in the Indian Ocean commencing in July 2020. It was a privilege to operate with the Indian Navy and Rear Admiral Jim Kirk, Commander Nimitz Carrier Strike Group, RADM, Watsian, Flag Officer commanding Eastern Fleet, leads a powerful and highly skilled fleet. The opportunity to have the Nimitz Carrier Strike Group join with his fleet for a series of exercises improved our interoperability and is a testimony to the flexibility of both our navies. The New York Times writes, while operating together, U.S. and Indian naval forces conducted high-ended exercises designed to maximize training and interoperability, including air defense. Nimitz CSG's operations are designed to provide security throughout the region while building partnerships with friends and allies. The naval arrangements such as these exercises improve the cooperation of U.S. and Indian maritime forces and contribute to both sides' ability to counter threats at sea, from piracy to violent extremism. These engagements also present opportunities to build upon the pre-existing strong relationship between the United States and India and allow both countries to learn from each other. Nimitz Carrier Strike Group is currently deployed to Indian Ocean in support of a free and open Indo-Pacific cooperation. These were the statements which were quoted in the New York Times. And the U.S. Navy 7th Fleet, whose headquarters are in Japan, have been mentioned by the newspaper. But as tensions soar between India and China, two nuclear-armed neighbors, the joint operation took on a greater significance. Tanvi Madan, the director of the India project at the Brookings Institution, has told it was a symbolic. It is also signaling to China and others that the US is standing by India. As the rivalry between India and China intensifies, the United States and India have taken their shared anger toward Beijing and forged stronger diplomatic and military ties that could alter the balance of power in the region. And the officials have noted that while that friendship has been on an upswing over the past 2 decades, the border dispute with China has accelerated relations between the countries. President Barack Obama's Assistant Secretary of State for South Asia and Central Asian Affairs, Nisha D. Biswal, said, both the US and India have recognized the importance of the other. And it is not a surprise that the Indians are looking for like-minded strategic and security partners, given concerns around a destabilizing environment in the Indo-Pacific. But now the social justice advocates worry that the Trump administration is turning a blind eye to India's rights abuses against Muslims under Prime Minister Narendra Modi, prioritizing military and geopolitical alliances over all else. And they are warming relations under the same authoritarian banner, said Wasim Dar, who campaigns for rights of people in the disputed territory of Kashmir. They are prioritizing military or hegemony over any kind of human rights or political freedom. The United States and India have increasingly soared on China in recent years. A looming presidential election in the United States and President Trump's eagerness to paint China as a rival. You well know about that the Junior Bush has entitled China a competitor, and even his predecessors and the successors. But now President Trump's eagerness to paint China as a rival has caused Washington to sharply shift its policies toward Beijing. The Trump administration has taken a series of economic, political, and diplomatic actions against China. Citing its crackdown on democratic protests in Hong Kong, human rights abuses against the largely Muslim Uyghur minority, unfair trade practices, and aggressive expansion into the South China Sea. At the same time, India and China have engaged in increasing aggression in recent months. In June, Indian and Chinese troops brawled along a land border. Between India and China, the worst clash in decades on disputed India-China border kills 20 Indian troops. Under nationalist leaders, the situation is critical. Under nationalist leaders, the nuclear-armed rivals, India and China, have been increasingly assertive toward neighbors, risking open conflict. They have contested their Himalayan border for generations. There were images of protesting in Ahmedabad, India on Tuesday after 20 Indian soldiers were killed in a confrontation with Chinese troops along their disputed border high in the Himalayas. Both countries and their nationalist leaders, President Xi Jinping of China and Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India, have taken increasingly assertive postures that pose real risks of the conflict spinning out of control. Neither PM Modi or President Xi want war, but neither can relinquish their territorial claims either. Ashley J. Tallis, a senior fellow at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace in Washington, has analyzed. There are images of Indian soldiers near a checkpoint along the Srinagar-Leh National Highway, limiting access to the disputed Ladakh. Jeffrey Gettleman, Harry Kumar, and Samir Yasser, the Indian correspondents and the analysts, have described the worst border clash between India and China in more than 40 years left 20 Indian soldiers dead and dozens believed captured. One Indian official said on Tuesday raising tensions between nuclear-armed rivals who have increasingly been flexing the diplomatic and military muscle. The violent tensions along the border and skirmishes in the Himalayas, killing 20 Indian soldiers, and in August, a soldier in the secretive force of Tibetan refugees working for the Indian Army was killed by a landmine. In September, both countries blamed each other for firing gunshots in the same region, the first time military fire had been recorded in the area for decades. Vikram J. Singh, the senior advisor to the Asia program at the United States Institute of Peace, disclosed the mentality of the both states that nobody is backing down. They are going to go through the winter like this. Now there is such situation where there is a whole bunch more flashpoints at a tactical level. Washington's relationship with India has a rocky history. During the Cold War, the United States grew closer with Pakistan, India's border rival, and Russia with India. U.S. relations with India started to warm in 2000, after President Bill Clinton became the first American president to visit the country since 1978. Since then, every American leader has made the trip to India and extolled the virtues of teaming with the world's largest democracy. Still, the United States and India have not signed a formal alliance. India, which for years has maintained a stance of non-alignment, has been reluctant to engage. The Himalayan crisis is helping change that India's increasing focus on China, a turnaround from the days when Pakistan claimed most of its attention, is a welcome sign for American diplomats who believe that the shared anger can draw India into a strategic partnership that will help neutralize China's growing influence in the region. And there is a recent history from 1991, since the regime of the Narasimha Rao to Donald Trump, which is unwilling about the India-China partnership on composite realms. Of most interest experts say, is whether the border dispute will move India closer into a regional partnership with the United States, Japan, and Australia, known as the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, or Quad. The forum, proposed in 2007 by the Japanese Prime Minister at the time, Shinzo Abe, was billed as the Asian arc of democracy. China has seen it as a threat to its dominance in the region, seeing the Quadrilateral is a U.S. attempt to create an Asian version of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO-like, which is directly aimed at counterbalancing its interests. In the past, India was hesitant to fully engage in the partnership, spurred by Australia's exit in 2008 and fearful of upsetting China and ruining its trade ties with the country. Australia has since rejoined. But former State Department officials and diplomacy experts note China's aggressive actions have started to backfire, pointing to recent moves that show India is more willing to participate in a coalition that is seen by most as anti-China. And Mr. Modi signaled in his call with Japan's new Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga that the two countries must work together for a free, open and inclusive Indo-Pacific region, echoing language used by the Quad and the United States. In the month of February, Donald Trump and the Prime Minister Narendra Modi have met in New Delhi. The India's Minister of External Affairs, Subrahmanyam Jaishankar, has also become increasingly vocal about the partnership. Experts say, and will meet in Tokyo on Tuesday with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and the Foreign Ministers of Japan and Australia for the Quad's second official meeting. The goal before was, don't provoke China too much. Richard Fontaine said, who served as Senator John McCain's foreign policy advisor and is now chief executive of the Center for a New American Security. But now, with China acting the way it is, he also said, there is no longer the sense of as much restraint on what India might do with the United States. There is a question about that, should India become more willing to turn the forum into a strategic alliance, it could prove beneficial for the region. The State Department officials have hope. Anything of the fortitude of NATO of the European Union does not exist and does not exist there, said Stephen E. Biegun, Deputy Secretary of State. Stephen E. Biegun added that while India was a centerpiece of the United States strategy in the Indo-Pacific region, it cannot be taken for granted that India wants to cement a formal partnership. And some scholars say the tide has turned and the relationship can go only one way. And that is the way. The direction of US-India relations is clear now toward closer cooperation. Chalani Brahma, a professor of strategic studies at the Center for Policy Research at New Delhi think tank, has said that will be the main fallout of China's aggression in the Himalayan region. And Mr. Jaishankar and his Chinese counterpart, Wang Yi, have pledged to ease tensions along their contested borders. However, a joint statement they issued in September fails to address key differences behind the border dispute, including the exact demarcation of the contested territory. The foreign ministers of the two countries issued a 5-point statement aimed at ending a simmering confrontation. A previous pledge was followed by the deadliest clash in decades. China and India has once again pledged to defuse tensions along their contested Himalayan. However, a joint statement they issued in September fails to address key differences behind the border dispute, including the exact demarcation of the contested territory. India and the United States are also looking to increase military cooperation. Over the years, India has accelerated its weapons purchases from the United States. It is slated to buy upward of $20 billion in American arms by the end of 2020, a sharp increase from nearly zero in 2008, according to the State Department. India plays a vital role in achieving our shared vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific. Working alongside interagency partners, the Political Military Affairs Bureau advances the defense-trade relationship and broader security partnership between the United States and India. In 2016, the United States designated India as a major defense partner. Commensurate with this designation, in 2018, India was elevated to Strategic Trade Authorization Tier 1 status. Which allows India to receive license-free access to a wide range of military and dual-use technologies regulated by the Department of Commerce. U.S.-India Defense Trade Cooperation continues to expand with the Logistic Exchange Memorandum of Agreement, Communications, Compatibility and Security Agreement, COMCASA, and LIMOE, and the Industrial Security Agreement, ISA, now in place. The PM Bureau supported the increase in total defense trade with India from near zero in 2000 to over $20 billion in 2020. The PM Bureau is committed to further streamlining U.S.-India defense sales. The U.S. facilitates through both the foreign military sales and direct commercial sales, DCS processes. These sales support thousands of jobs in both countries and help ensure the health of both countries' defense industrial bases. FM sales notified to Congress are listed here. A recent and significant prior sales includes MH-60R, Seahawk helicopter, amount $2.8 billion cost, Apache helicopters, $796 million cost, and the large aircraft infrared countermeasure $189 million cost. India was the first non-treaty partner to be offered a missile technology control regime category first, unmanned aerial system. The missile technology control regime category first unmanned aerial system, the Sea Guardian UAS, manufactured by General Atomics. PM continues to support advocacy for the Lockheed Martin F-21 and Boeing's F-18 Super Hornet and F-15X Eagle as part of India's future fighter aircraft acquisitions. A potential selection of any of these platforms would enhance India's military capabilities, increase U.S.-India military interoperability, and protect shared security interests in the Indo-Pacific region. Since 2015, the United States also authorized India over $3 billion in defense articles via the DCS process, which licenses the export of the defense equipment, services, and related manufacturing technologies controlled under the 21 categories of the U.S. munitions list USML. The top DCS categories to India during this period were military electronics, USML category 11, fire control, laser imaging, and guidance equipment category 12, and aircraft and related articles. The PM Bureau is the U.S. government lead for building peacekeeping cooperation with India. India is consistently among the top 5 contributors of military and police personnel to UN peacekeeping operations, with over 5,000 personnel deployed at any given time. From 2016 to 2019, India and the United States jointly taught the UN peacekeeping course for African partners. These courses, conducted in New Delhi and organized for officers from 23 African troops and police contributing countries, were co-sponsored by the U.S. Global Peace Operations Initiative and taught by U.S. Indian and African Corps alumni. The United States and India are now looking to expand collaboration on peacekeeping cooperation with Indo-Pacific partners. This enduring element of cooperation speaks to the strength of the U.S.-India security partnership and our mutual commitment to uphold the ideas on which the United Nations were founded. The New York Times and the state official of the USDS has told a correspondent. So the US-India cooperation and collaboration and ties are consolidated since 2 decades are over. And the more recently, India has sought to fast-track a purchase of 30 MQ-9B Sky Guardian drones from General Atomics, in a deal that is likely to exceed $3 billion, according to industry officials. The drones could be deployed to India's disputed border region with China and significantly expanded surveillance over the area. The news was reported earlier by India Today. In September, the United States also signed a defense agreement with Maldives, a teeny nation of Iceland close to India's border, that provides the United States an opportunity to counter China's ability to expand its presence in the region. India has been historically skeptical of foreign military presence so close to its borders, but bless the deal. Diplomats are watching to see if India invites Australia to participate in a naval exercise it holds with Japan and the United States. It would be another sign that India is taking the concept of the Quad seriously, experts said. As of Wednesday, India was still considering whether Australia should be included, according to a senior State Department official. But despite the warning and the warming ties, Mr. Trump said Mr. Modi, both conservatives, have not addressed human rights concerns. Mr. Modi, a Hindu nationalist, has been criticized heavily for actions that have disenfranchised Muslims in India. Last August, Mr. Modi revoked a special status for Kashmir that had granted it greater autonomy than other Indian states. After protests erupted over the mayor, he clamped down with lockdowns and a suspension of phone and internet services. So, the revoking of special status of Kashmir that has maintained Kashmir an imprisonment or social, political and economic imprisonment of the people, and also maintained the status with curfew, a territory of the jail or the prison. And in the last year, Mr. Modi also introduced a law that laid out a path to citizenship for people for 6 religious minorities who arrived to India before 2015. Muslims were excluded. The action prompted mass protests across India and resulted in a brutal police crackdown. So domestic affairs have been abruptly disordered. Human rights experts say it is troubling that the United States talks so strongly about human rights abuses in China, but is willing to engage in deeper diplomatic and strategic ties with India, where similar situations are occurring. Mr. Dar said it is basically a hypocrisy. To which side the camel will sit in the future, the conflict between India and China may be erupted into a lengthy war situation, and what the rational decision the US will take in such scenario, after Donald Trump's election, the situation may emerge critical in the future between China and India, and the situation which is now seemingly horrific, and there is some other problematic situation of coronavirus which has disturbed only for some time and suspended the same situation. And the world analysts are telling about the India, China and Pakistan are the atomic nations. So the peaceful conflict resolutions for the border settlement must have to be carried out with the arbitration of the third power. And may America take this opportunity, but America is only to protect its own strategic interest in the region, that is doing the same job which the political realist guidelined the American strategist is.